Okay, welcome back to the bench. It's going to be a short video today. I haven't put a video up in a while. Obviously, I've been busy and haven't had an opportunity to do this. But I've been thinking a lot about the radio hobby. Um, it's something different to everyone. I'd love to hear what my viewers, what they're doing with the radio hobby. You know, you can be a shelf queen collector where you buy a radio that's in real good shape and you just put it on a shelf as part of your collection. Um, or you could be a restorer where you're more interested in getting a radio that doesn't work, working on it, getting it working, and then putting it on the shelf. Or selling it, whatever you want to do with it. You can go into tube radios, transistor radios, communications receivers, AM or AM/FM, AM/FM shortwave, portable, suitcase portable, tabletop, shirt pocket, all kinds of different things. You can specialize in a lot of different things. And I'm curious what my viewers are doing in the radio hobby. Myself, I'm more of an accumulator, okay? If I see something I like, I'll get it. Other people have said to me, hey, I've got this old radio, do you want it? Hey, yeah, okay. I never say no. The majority of my radios, though, that I have, if they're on display, they're working. Except for a couple of the consoles aren't working. Because they're too big. I don't normally do consoles, but I've got 4 of them right now. But it's interesting. There's so much we can do with the radio hobby. I'm also a ham radio operator, KO2FB, Kilo Oscar 2 Foxtrot Bravo. But I've enjoyed listening to shortwave and different types of communications for years. I've also got an electronics background. That's why when I buy a radio or I get a radio, to me, it's all about getting it working and making sure that it's working okay. I'd really like to stress to people that aren't really into the hobby yet, or they know people, and they come to you and they say, "Hey, I've got Grandpa's old radio, Grandma's old radio. Let's plug it in and see if it works." No, please don't do that. Sometimes you can get away with plugging it in. You'll hear a loud hum. That's an indication of, most of the time, of bad filter capacitors. But you can also do a lot of damage if those radios capacitors are shorted. So if you know what you're doing, tell them, hold on, let me check it out before you actually turn it on. Most of us that are in the electronics, have an electronics background, use some type of current limiting device, like a dim bulb tester. There's a lot, I'm not going to get into that. There are videos out there on YouTube about dim bulb testers, variacs, isolated power supplies. There's a lot of things you really need to know. What I would like to say is, if you're new to the hobby and you want to learn the electronics end of it, Mr. Carlson's Lab has a Patreon site, and for a minimal amount of money, he's got a course on there about electronics. I mean, he's forgotten more than I know. He's brilliant. He's very good. So is Shango 066. B. Anderson TV. All of these guys on YouTube are excellent at what they do, and you can learn a lot from them. That being said, 60, 70, 80-year-old capacitors, I don't check them. I just replace them. The reason being, I know what each capacitor is supposed to do. I'm not in a learning process. I know that I can probably get away with leaving some of them in there. But what's the sense? If I'm changing 8 capacitors, why not just change 2 or 3 more? Or, you get the idea what I'm saying. You're in there working on it. They're eventually going to go bad. if they haven't gone bad yet, if you start listening to that radio and running power through that radio, eventually they'll start going as well. So don't just think you can get a radio and shotgun. In other words, replace all of the capacitors and the radio's going to work. There could be a lot of other things wrong with it. Take some time and read some books. Watch these videos. Mr. Carlson's Lab, Shango 066. Again, Mr. Carlson's Lab on Patreon. He has a Patreon site that he teaches a course on electronics. I would highly recommend it to anybody just getting into the hobby and want to restore the radios. I mean, I can show you some of what I've accumulated. I kind of tend towards Zenith. I like Zenith radios. So I probably have more Zeniths than anything. Philcos. I've got a lot of Philcos, and they're all in that 41, 42, 43 vintage, and I hate them. The reason I hate them is because you touch the wiring in them and it just crumbles and falls apart, so you wind up replacing every piece of wire in the radio. So yeah, it can be a problem on those older radios with rubber wiring. I'm going to show you a couple radios that I've acquired. Okay, like I said, I had people give me radios. Then I'll take you around and show you some of the ones I have out on display. So just stand by. I'm going to take you off the hook here. Okay. So here's two Zenith Royal 500s. You'd look at that and you'd say, wow, these are pretty much the same. One's red, one's black. A lot of differences. If you look at the shape of these knobs. Look at the shape of these knobs. This is an older 500. This was one of the original runs on this radio, because they had this knob on here, this style of knob. And if I flip them over, okay, you see this one? This one has a metal hand-wired chassis, okay? It's not a circuit board. It's a metal chassis. If I come over to this one, I'll bring them side by side. This is a circuit board, okay? Plug them in, okay? Solder them on the other side. Again, this one is all hand wired. This is definitely an older radio than this one. You can see some differences in the layout, but they're pretty much the same, okay? Again, I wanted to show you that because these, the older ones, are going for substantially more money than these. And I've seen them online on eBay where people are trying to get the same price for these as a collector's item as these. Big difference in the two as far as the collection is concerned, okay? You might want to have both, like I do, but again, this one is more valuable. And I'm going to swing you over to this radio here. This is an AM/FM radio. This is actually the second one that I've owned. This one happens to have a label on it for AMC. It's also labeled, the original one I had was labeled Singer. And I saw online, I didn't get an opportunity to buy it, I wish I had. It was HRC. Now I believe HRC, I don't really remember the Heroku, something like that, was it the actual manufacturer. I just, again, caught my eye. I just think it's a real sharp radio. This is a little goldish over here. This is reverse painted. Really done up nice. Excellent radio. Never could find a schematic on this radio. It's got a little bit of a problem now that I have a schematic. I have to get in there and work on it. But I didn't want to do a lot of tearing apart on this until I could find the schematic. So lo and behold, one day on eBay, somebody is selling okay, I'm gonna have to hold you crazy here for a minute. Okay, the operating instructions, and there's a schematic which I've blown up. It's got the case. All of these cases seem to have this problem where the cord is coming out of the stitching, and it has everything in here. It's a complete kit. This happens to be the second. When I bought this radio, okay, it had a leather case on it, but I didn't have everything else that went with it. Now I've got a complete set. What does that mean to me? I don't know. I like the radio. The reason I bought this stuff here is because I wanted the schematic. That's all I wanted out of that. Because I'm not a diehard collector, having shelf queens, so to speak. But again, this is an AM/FM radio. Sounds good. Reverse painted. It just got to be one of my favorite transistor radios. I'm going to pause you and start showing you some of the other radios that I have that I've accumulated. Okay, here's my shelf queen. This is a 1921 Atwater Kent Model 2 that I've fully restored. It does work. Of course, it's battery operated. You have to hook up a speaker to it. But this is my shelf queen. Again, this is a 1921 breadboard radio by Atwater Kent. A couple small transistor radios. Here's an RCA. I did a video on this one recently. Okay. Here's a Gonset communicator for the ham radio guys that are out there. Again, this was used as a civil defense radio for amateur radios, the RACES program, the Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Service. All right. I got a couple more up here. Again, I just had a video on this one. And this one, I was going to do a video on it. I just repaired it and put it back on the shelf. I turned it on. It wasn't working. Found that it had a broken trace. Repaired the trace. The radio's working fine. Okay. Swing you across. See, here's my sign. Those who think they know it all upset those of us who do. All right. This is a Detrola that was given to me. It's going to need work. It's still sitting on the shelf. I've got a bunch of other things to do ahead of it. Here's another Zenith 500. Here's a 400. Again, I talked about this in one of my other videos. I bought this radio, tore it apart because I needed the speaker for this radio, and I used a couple of the transistors from here in the Heathkit radio that I did a series on. Okay. Okay. Again, I believe this is a Silvertone, Sears. Does it say Silvertone? Yeah, it's a Silvertone. That's been fully restored. This console down here, step back a little bit. The case is in great shape. Nice radio. Again, it's a Philco. Not the original record player, but eventually I'll get this one working as well. Okay, here's a Westinghouse that was given to me, fully restored, including the case. This down here was a faux finish. Okay, and this was red mahogany. I kind of like the way that looked. Not original, but hey, these are your radios. You can basically do what you want with them. Let me swing you around over to here. Here's an RCA that was fully restored. Okay. Again, this one here was a a barn find. Here's another one down here, fully restored. It's a barn find. And here's my zeniths. The 2000, the interoceanic. This is the 3000. This is the 1000. Now, obviously, nobody gave me these. Okay. Another RCA that's been restored. That was given to me. I've got a 600 series Zenith transoceanic. And then I've got a Philco that's been fully restored. One similar to what my mother had when I was a kid that I destroyed. And here's another radio that my mother had when I was a kid that eventually got tossed, and so I found one and bought it. Not the original, but so your radios are your radios. Oh, and this one down here as well. Okay. Again, damn, I'll tell you, all these radios, I hardly ever listen to them. Okay. None of my radios have Bluetooth in them. Not something I want to do to them. Yeah, I could hook up Bluetooth and have all of these playing, whatever I want. But again, that's not what I'm doing. So I'm going to get back to the bench. This is it, my talk about collecting or accumulating. I do a little bit of both. I collect the Zeniths. I like the Zenith radios, the transoceanic. Why do I like them? Because back in the late 50s, early 60s, when I was a kid, my parents couldn't afford to buy me any of these. Just wasn't in the works. So now I guess I'm making up for it. All right. But again, collecting or accumulating. I very rarely say no when somebody says, hey, I got an old radio, you want it? I don't say no. Okay, back at the bench. Thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate it. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you're doing in the hobby. I'd like to exchange ideas. Where you're at, what are you doing? Again, let's communicate. Let's talk and find out what each other's doing. My next project is on the bench already. Again, this was given to me. No, I didn't say no. It's a Heathkit VTVM model V-7A. See where it goes. I do have a VTVM. I don't even have it up on the bench. But again, I'm going to restore it, get it working, and put the modification in there to eliminate the battery, the C battery, so I don't have to worry about batteries leaking. One other thing I almost forgot to talk about was, if you look around, okay, I got soldering stuff here. I got sweep marker generators. I've got oscilloscope. That's one of, 3 or 4 oscilloscopes that I have. Audio generator, signal generator, frequency counter, VOM, signal tracer. I got other stuff, tube testers, AC voltmeters. What I want to get at, okay, here's a capacitor tester. Very nice. Hardly ever use it. Like I said, when I get into a radio, they're all coming out. I don't care if they're good now or whatever. They're just coming out. They're old, they're coming out. There's another Zenith waiting to be restored. What I want to talk about, you don't need all of this to get started in working on radios. You should have some type of a VTVM, okay? It's good to have a digital voltmeter, a signal tracer. This is yeah, pointed to it and I wasn't even showing you. I moved the battery on the outside so I don't have to open it up all the time to change a battery. Signal tracer. Signal tracer. You don't need one like this, although they're not that expensive, even on eBay. If you go to swap meets, hamfests, radio club meets and stuff like that, you can get away with a signal generator, a couple voltmeters, and get started. You don't need all of this, okay? Get into the hobby, learn something about what you're doing, restore a VTVM, then you can start working on radios, okay? Enjoy the hobby. Let me know what you think. And again, that's my next project coming up.